She used a stolen key to break into my home in broad daylight, and instead of exposing some dirty little secret she thought I was hiding, she got a bucket of rotting blue paint dumped all over her head while the whole neighborhood filmed it. Weeks later, she sat trembling in a courtroom facing jail time for perjury and trespassing. That's the story of how our HOA president went from smug Queen Bee to blue cheese Karen. It all started at a regular HOA meeting under those harsh fluorescent lights in the clubhouse. I was sitting there half tuning out thinking about dinner when Karen Williams, our self-appointed dictator in heels, slammed her gavel on the table like she was running the Supreme Court. With that smug grin plastered across her face, she announced a new safety initiative. According to her, she should personally have the right to inspect every homeowner's garage, make sure no one was hiding illicit or dangerous materials. You could feel the air in the room shift. Some people chuckled nervously. Others actually nodded along like sheep begging for the shear. I raised my hand, kept my voice calm. "Is this mandatory or optional?" I asked. She tilted her head, smiled like a cat about to eat a bird. "If you've got nothing to hide," she purred, "why wouldn't you let me inspect?" The room murmured. My gut clenched. I said firmly, "I don't consent. There's nothing illegal in my garage, and no one has the right to walk in there." A couple neighbors looked relieved, but they just stared at me like I'd grown horns. Karen's smile thinned into a straight line. Her eyes narrowed and she banged the gavel again. "Okay then," she said. But the way she stared at me told me this wasn't over. After that night, things got creepy. I'd look up from my porch and see her standing at the edge of my driveway, leash dangling with no dog attached, just watching. Sometimes she'd be parked across the street in her SUV, scribbling into a little notebook. Every time our eyes met, she'd flash that wicked smile like she knew something I didn't. I tried to shake it off. Told myself she was just nosy, maybe bored. But then one Thursday night I came home late from work, and something felt wrong the second I stepped inside. The stack of mail on my counter was slightly off a chair, nudged just a few inches from where I left it, and the garage light, always off when I leave, was on. My stomach dropped. Someone had been inside my house. No broken locks, no windows forced, just entry. I racked my brain. Who had access? Who would dare? The number one name that kept circling back was Karen. That evening I saw her by the mailbox. She didn't say a word, just raised her hand, nails chipped, and waved with that smug little grin. It chilled me to the bone. The following week, same night, same pattern. More things out of place, tools in the garage rearranged. That wasn't coincidence. That was strategy. Thursdays were my late nights at the office, and she knew it. My suspicion hardened into certainty, but I had nothing solid. What could I do, storm over and scream at the HOA president without proof? I'd look insane. And honestly, for a moment I thought maybe I was insane. I'd lie awake at night staring at the ceiling thinking, what if I'm just paranoid? What if I'm making enemies in my own neighborhood over nothing? I even told myself to just let it go, let her win. What's a little invasion of privacy if it keeps the peace? But every time I pictured her smug face, every time I thought of her flipping through my belongings like she owned me, a fire burned in my chest. No, enough was enough. So I hatched a plan. If she wanted to play games in my house, I'd set the board myself. I called my neighbor, Mrs. Adler Linda, 2 doors down. She had a perfect view of my driveway. I asked her to keep her phone ready, stay quiet. Thursday morning I slipped out pretending to head to work, but instead I ducked into Linda's living room. From behind her blinds I had the perfect vantage point. My heart pounded, my palms sweaty, but my mind was locked in. The trap was disgusting but brilliant. I'd taken a 5-gallon bucket of bright blue paint mixed in sour milk vinegar raw eggs. It smelled like a sewer married a landfill. I rigged it above my front door, a thin thread stretched across the welcome mat. Anyone stepping in would trip it, unleashing hell. Hours dragged by. I kept checking my watch ears, straining for the sound. Then around 1 p.m., there she was. Karen strutted down the street like she owned it. She glanced over her shoulder, saw my empty driveway, and walked right up head high. No hesitation. She pulled something out of her purse. A key. My blood boiled. She had cloned my key. She slipped it in the lock, twisted, pushed the door. The thread snapped. The bucket flipped. The sound. Oh man, that sound. A wet, sloppy splat, followed by the most satisfying shriek I've ever heard. Karen stumbled back, her pristine blouse, her hair, her face, every inch of her drenched in thick, rotting blue sludge. The smell hit instantly sour and vile, and she gagged. Neighbors' blinds shot open. Phones came out. Someone actually gasped out loud. I stepped out from Linda's porch, phone in hand. "Smile for the camera, Karen," I shouted, grinning ear to ear. Linda cackled beside me. Karen looked like a swamp monster, dripping and reeking, flailing her arms as she bolted down the street, leaving blue footprints all the way home. By sundown, the neighborhood group chat was flooded with videos, memes, everyone calling her Blue Cheese Karen. Her humiliation spread like wildfire. I thought that would be the end of it. Surely she'd crawl into her cave and stay there. I was wrong. 3 days later, a thick envelope landed in my mailbox. A subpoena. Karen was suing me. Claims of intentional assault, emotional distress, property damage. I laughed out loud at first. The audacity. She had broken into my home with a stolen key, triggered my trap, and now I was the criminal. But the laughter died quick. Because lawsuits aren't cheap. If the court sided with her, I could lose everything. The day of the trial, the courthouse buzzed. Neighbors showed up like it was the Super Bowl. Karen marched in wearing a cream pantsuit, chin high, her lawyer in tow. She looked every bit the victim she was trying to play. When she swore under oath that she had never entered my home, had never copied my key, I almost pitied her. Almost. Then it was my turn. I pulled out my phone, played the footage. There she was, bold as brass, walking up my driveway, slipping the key into my lock and screaming as the blue rain poured over her. Gasps rippled across the courtroom. And then came Linda's video from across the street, capturing the whole scene from another angle. Karen's composure cracked. Her jaw trembled, her face flushed red. The judge leaned forward, voice hard as steel. "Mrs. Williams, you have lied under oath. That is perjury. Not only is your claim dismissed, but you are guilty of criminal trespass, harassment, and false testimony." His gavel slammed down like thunder. The sentence: 60 days in county jail, 1 year, probation permanently barred from any HOA board, and $50,000 in damages owed to me. The room erupted in murmurs. Phones buzzed again, no doubt more memes in the making. Karen's face drained of color as deputies escorted her out. The mighty HOA president, the self-crowned queen of Brookhaven Glade, reduced to nothing but a cautionary tale, our very own Blue Cheese Karen. And that's where it ended. No victory party, no champagne. Just the sound of the gavel and the image of Karen, once untouchable, finally paying for every ounce of her arrogance. Sometimes the only way to beat a bully is to let their own lies bury them.